Okay, perfect. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Food for the Homeless podcast. This is episode number 3. I'm super excited to be interviewing my cousin, Tynecia Estrada, founder and president of Girls Breaking Chains Incorporated. Oh, I'm sorry, Girls Breaking Chains Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. This next guest is transforming our children's mental health into mental wealth. According to the National Institute of Corrections, there are currently 2.7 million children in the U.S. whose parents are incarcerated, and 10 million children in total have experienced parental incarceration at some point. My guest host today has experienced the traumas of parental incarceration, which inspired her to create Girls Breaking Chains Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides a village of support, engagement, and development for young girls dealing with psychological and emotional pain. Please help me welcome Tynecia Estrada, founder and president of Girls Breaking Chains Incorporated.
Thank you, Danielle. Wow, what an introduction.
No, no, when I was originally looking up, I know from my own neighborhood and from my own surroundings how big of an issue parental incarceration is. It just so happened we shared the same statistics from your site, and I looked it up, and that's just such a big number that stands out. It's 2.7 million children in the U.S.
Yeah.
Parents are incarcerated. That's a crazy number. So I'll start off with a couple of questions. Question number one, so I wanna give the people a version of who you are, and they know you're the founder and president, but what's the reason you got into this? So with you being a part of, your father was incarcerated at some point, and you found out about this. At what point did you realize your father's situation, and how did it affect you?
Well, let me just start by saying thank you for having me on the podcast.
Of course.
And I really am grateful to be here in the work that you're doing. People don't know that I hope they know that you've written a book and the great things that you're doing, being such a young person, and I commend you for that. I'm very proud of you for that.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Well, for me, I mean, the way it happened for me, I'll just explain it to you. I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house. She was like a mom to me. And just after church one day, I'm eating, we eat sitting at the table, just she and I. And she just breaks the story to me. Hey,
you.
I wanted to talk to you about something. And my grandmother, she was a teacher for like 40 something years, so she has a way of talking to kids and, making them feel seen and heard. So the way she did it, it was very, and it was devastating to me, but still, she was able to kind of talk me through coming down. So she just basically said, your dad is in jail. They arrested your dad, and he's accused of committing a crime, hurting someone. And, you know, we haven't been to court. We don't have all the details just yet. But she said, everything is going to be okay. And remind you, being 10 years old, me being a daddy's girl, dad being my best friend, although him and my mother weren't together, he lived in Atlanta and I lived in Cordell. We had an amazing relationship. And so that having you just say your best friend um, in jail, and I knew what jail was because I had aunts and uncles that were in jail as
Right,
well.
right.
So to watch, I have my cousins go through that, and now me, oh my God, it was devastating. I cried so long. My
Wow.
grandma just, yeah, I still can remember that being, that was like 25 years ago, but I still remember that conversation with my grandmother.
Wow.
So that's how I found out, from her. It wasn't my mom, it was her. So yeah.
Well, I feel like sometimes it's hard on both parties, right? Because you as a child, as a 10-year-old girl, learn about this, learn about losing your best friend, losing your father, and also, your grandma doesn't want to tell you. She doesn't really want to release that information to you, but she knows she has to. So
Right.
I just commend her for being a strong enough woman to even release that information. I commend you for receiving it. So you were 10 years old at this point. So you were living with your father. You guys were you were a family up until this point, up until he was committed of this crime.
Right. Well, I lived with my mom, but I would
Okay.
visit back and forth, like spend the summers with him, holidays with him. He would come to Cordell. I mean, he was a dad, regardless of him and my
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
being together. He took care of me.
Yes. Yes. I think, and this is, something that you mentioned my book earlier. One of the reasons I wrote Food for the Homeless was because I have so many friends that don't have father figures. And I'm glad that you're able to um I guess I'm glad you were able to experience fatherhood even though they weren't in the house, because it's about being a village, right? It's about having that support system no matter how it's built. So I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear that it was communicated to you, because you could have been left out the loop and it could have been a lot of miscommunication. So I'm glad to hear that built out that way. So your grandma has this conversation with you, but even though you guys don't live together, your mom obviously still has a relationship with your father, with this man. So did you see a change in your mother's behaviors or any struggles once your father went to prison?
Well, my mom, she has a severe mental illness, and she had a mental illness before, my dad even went to prison. But I can remember at the time her being stable because she also comforted me. With mental illness, it's, you're up, you're down one day, it just depends on the severity of the illness and if it's being managed, with medication or, therapy and so forth. So
Yeah.
it wasn't something that was constant. It was off and on with my mom, but yeah, she was there. She definitely comforted me. Anytime I received a letter, it was hard for me when my dad sent me a letter from prison. It was extremely hard. I cried every single time I received the letter because it was a
Yeah.
reminder that
Mhm.
he's not there with me. So it took my mom to calm me down. If she couldn't calm me down, she would call my grandmother. And remember, I told you about my grandma. She just had a way about her, the certain spirit about her, that she could just calm you down, make you feel like you're the only person in the room. So she comforted me a lot of times, they over the phone. So yeah.
Uh, I know it's a hard process to go through. So how did you? I guess I'm wondering, how did that end up going? So you were 10 years old. Was your father ever released from prison? How did that? How did like how long was the time he was in prison, and like just how long was he in prison?
Well, he was in prison for about 25 years.
Wow.
I'm not sure if you know my story, but he was executed for his crime, you
Mm-hmm.
know, 7 years ago. So yeah, I 25 years of my life has been spent um, going to visit him in prison, writing to him. I lived in Florida for after high school, so driving from Florida, visiting my dad
Yeah.
uh, as well. So yeah, it was a long ride.
Yeah, I read about that in the article from the Voyager you sent me, and I almost couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe, for one, me just being a spiritual person, a God oriented person, that life is in somebody else's hands like that, for one, and just for two, that it was somebody in my own family. That's very emotional. But like I said, the I'm starting to see uh the trends of your grandmother being passed down to you. I'm definitely seeing that same strength that she had to have that conversation with you being applied in you. I'm
Oh,
definitely seeing that, because it's very hard to take and have that conversation at such a young age and still become the person you are today. You
oh,
know?
thank you. That's a huge compliment
Yeah,
because she was a great woman of faith.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, and I'm sure like in your inner circle, in your outer circle, the people that you associate with, a lot of people of our complexion, we're broken by this cycle, right? Like we get into these routines of, mediocrity, because we only see ourselves at a certain level. We can only do this or only do that because we've been we've been in these situations, but I'm glad you were able to succeed the way you have.
Mm,
So with this strength being built up, what was it? Was it these letters, or what moments of your life helped you decide to shift to create your 501c3 nonprofit, Girls Breaking Chains Incorporated? What shift prompted that?
oh man, I couldn't do this without, my faith in God. You had to have hope. You have to have faith in something bigger than you. And definitely Jesus Christ is the only way that I could get through, all of this, but definitely going through a journey of healing. Because at one point I couldn't even talk about this. I mean, I hid this from even some of my friends that didn't even know, because that's how much fear had paralyzed me, and that's how much the enemy had me in bondage. I didn't want to share my story. I didn't want anyone to know, my dad committed this horrible crime.
Yeah.
Not realizing that it wasn't me that committed it, but I felt liable because he was my dad. You know what I mean? And I
Right.
didn't want anyone to, say anything nasty about him or mean about him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely had to go through a journey of healing and really processing these feelings. It took a long time. Mind you that my dad's execution was 7 years ago. I've been working towards this for the last couple years. It doesn't happen right away. Things, God takes you through a healing process. He had to really, you have to really cast your cares and your burdens upon him, and allow him to come into those places,
Mm-hmm.
and do the work that he needs to do, so he can, you can keep your eyes on him and move past that trauma. So I'm grateful, for that. But I do have a great support system as well. Some great friends and family members that have encouraged me there. I mean, it's a lot of factors that got me to
Yeah.
this right where I'm at now. It didn't happen overnight. It took years.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of healing, a lot of understanding. I heard you mention therapy. I just my wife has encouraged me and almost talked me into better help. Better help. I'm
Yeah.
not as a I'm just be honest, as a black male, I'm not big on just having a random person hear my feelings, right? So I had to, that takes a lot of confidence and a lot of vulnerability to just let loose and let somebody else into your situation, let them know, not only let them into your situation, but also letting them know how you feel about it and how it affects you. That's a very hard thing to do. So like I said, I commend you, and I'm glad that uh, I don't know. The term that comes to mind is spiritual gift, to be honest. It almost
Mm,
seems like, we like like this is just me talking. God gives us these situations, right? And but only you go through the situation. Nobody else deals with the situation. So only you would
mm,
know how to shift through it,
yeah.
how to get through it. Nobody else could tell you how to do it except you. So it almost seems like even
Mhm,
though it was a tragic event, it almost makes it seem like the
mhm.
message that you spread through Girls Breaking Chains and the young women you help on a daily basis, those young women are part of you developing your spiritual gift and passing it on to someone else. So I think the women that you encounter will be blessed to have you. So
Oh,
so
thank you.
yeah, no problem. Just I mean, I'm just listening to you. I'm the lucky one here. I'm just listening to your story, and I'm amazed that 7 years is not a short time ago. 7 years is less than a decade. Um, and nobody can tell you when to step away from your pain. Nobody can make you do that. Like
Right.
that's something that comes on your own time, and you deserve that time to reflect and understand. So I commend you, and I appreciate you for even talking to me about it. Um, so
Yeah.
so you build these, you build a Girls Breaking Chains, you get the 501c3, but then you have to get a team, right? You have to
Mhm.
what they call
Yeah.
outsource and get people that do things that you don't know how to do, like marketing, media, all these things, right? So
Yeah.
how do
Yeah.
how do you start to trust people? How do you start to build that team and that organization when you first started? Like what were your first steps in getting your nonprofit started?
Well, I mean, the first thing I tell you, you definitely have to pray about it because you want the right people, you know. And so that was one thing. And then God just started revealing people. I was praying and asking me and my husband, like Lord, send the right people. And that honestly, that's just the way it happened. And the team happened, you know. And
Wow.
we're still growing. We're very new. We're a new nonprofit. So, you know, we're still growing and you know, we haven't started our support group yet, but we're taking more of a grassroots approach because we're in relationships within the community and kind of going that route to get our referrals. So we don't want to just, you know, put something out on social media and say, hey, send someone here or there. We want to support our community. We want to make sure that the people that we take care of the people that are in our community. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, and well,
Hold on, somebody just joined. I'm gonna try to make you the main speaker though. Give me a second. Let's see. Oh, it should be fine. I think that muted.
they don't look muted, but okay.
Hold on, let's see. One participant. Sorry, I think they did though.
Okay.
Okay.
No worries. Okay.
Sorry, it cut you off. You were speaking on the grassroots approach and touching the community.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, you were asking me about the team,
Mhm.
the group of people I have. It was important for me that they have a love for people, you know, to help people, you know, a passion to give back. And the group that I have, they are definitely that. And experience. We are still learning, you know, even when you start any type of business, you know, you're going to have, you know, some growing pains where you learn things together, but we're still growing and we're still learning. And me, myself, as a leader of a nonprofit, you know, I'm taking classes, part of a group, a nonprofit group that, you know, where we hold each other accountable, work through issues. You know, it's, you really have to, it's the ongoing learning, you know,
Mhm.
as you know, with any type of business. But yeah, I'm really grateful for the support that I have from the people around me.
Yeah, I'm definitely proud of you for even starting it. The first step is starting it, right? The first
Mhm.
step is even sticking your foot out there and saying, I'm going to do this, and then putting the steps toward it. And I'm proud of you for that. I think the young women of the community are going to be very happy that you embrace them and that you're there for them. You know, seeing those familiar faces is going to allow them to be, you know, more trustworthy and more open to doing events with you guys. So I look forward to it. I really do. I love things like this to help out the community. Um, so I kind of want to ask this question, and I want to know the answer because a lot of times people, like you said, you learned about your father being incarcerated at 10 years old,
Mhm.
but we see it in real life, we see it on TV, we see it where parents really struggle to have conversations with their children about tough topics. How are we going to address it with them? Like, does he need to know, you know, from things to not only parental incarceration but adoption, all of these different things that they need to know, that like almost necessities, but they just are worried about telling them. So, um, how knowledgeable do you think young women should be about their parents' sentences and crime? And then, what age do you think is appropriate to like explain it to them?
Listen, and I've had this question asked to me before as well, and just, you know, the studying that I've done and the way it happened, you know, how it happened for me, the honesty is so appreciated, and I really think that parents need to be honest, but
Yes.
also talk to them, you know, based upon their age, you know, use that type of language when you're talking to them. Okay, say daddy went to jail for taking something. He
Mm.
stole something. You're just gonna have to break it down based upon their age group. And older kids can understand, but little kids, you have to talk to them. Hey, how when you do something wrong, mommy or daddy, we have to discipline you. You have to get things taken care of, taken away from you, time out, whatever method it is. So the same way daddy did this, and for this, he has been punished for it. And so that's the way you have to go about it. Honesty is always the best policy. I'm telling you, you have to be honest with them. And I'm so thankful that, at that age, my grandmother did talk to me and tell me, but she didn't tell me exactly saying my dad, committed a heinous crime. She just said, he was arrested. He was accused of committing a crime. And so for that 10, I would not be able to handle, saying your dad murdered someone. I mean, that's just not,
Right.
you don't
That's
do
a
that.
tough topic.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
too heavy for a 10-year-old. So,
Hmm.
but honesty and then age appropriate conversations. And from there, if you can't do it, then you need to bring in someone that's close to that child, and have it be a supportive group of family members, a village of people to come and talk to them, even, and then get therapy. If some people, for me, I just wish, when I was 10 that I would have gotten therapy. But remember back then, and this happened like late 80s. So
Hmm.
people didn't really talk about, Black people were all scared of, therapy. You know what I mean?
Still are. We still are right now. Yes.
Yeah,
It's becoming more prevalent, but people still are nervous about talking about their feelings for sure.
that is true. That is true. But I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. Some days I am. Some days I definitely am. I'm definitely nervous about. I've never had this issue or like somebody being incarcerated close to me that was a family member, but still, some days just make it. It almost makes it feel like you're burdening someone else with your feelings. You never want to feel like that. I wanted to ask you a question though.
Okay.
So I actually have two questions. So you feel like they should be knowledgeable. You should be honest with them. What should a parent do if they ever start to feel bad about telling their child or making this decision? Like you tell your child that what grade are you in at 10 years old? Maybe like second grade or something like that. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't know what grade that is. But roughly, okay, let's just say they're in second grade. You tell them, and then by fifth grade they start to act out a bit. You start to see changes in their behavior that may be, a reaction to what you've told them about their parents' incarceration. Do you think parents, not that they should feel bad, but how do you think a parent should handle that type of stress? Or how do you think a parent should cope with that, without feeling bad or putting a burden on themselves, because they still have to be a parent. So how do you think they should deal with that?
Hmm. You know, all I can think of is the best way is to get some support. You need people around you to support you,
Okay.
And I'm just looking back and thinking about, even, from my grandmother's perspective, that was her son, having
Mhm.
people around you to encourage you and, and uplift you. You need that. You definitely need a support system. And even with our organization, we take a village of support. We want this to be a village for those that don't have a village.
Yes, yes, for
So,
sure.
yeah, I just feel like people have to come around you to help you get through this, because some people, you can, I mean, you just can't prepare for anyone going to prison. So you need somebody that can support you and get in it, like we just talked about the therapy. Get somebody to walk alongside you if you can't talk to your family member, because some people will talk to a stranger before they talk to a family member.
Crazy. Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
it's true.
sad, but
That's
it's true
true.
because
That is true. That is
in
true.
our community, people are very judgmental. From my
Mhm.
experience, even family can be very judgmental.
Yes,
So
yes. Oh no, I totally agree with that. I
support.
totally agree with that. Sometimes people don't do it. They do it without even knowing they're doing it. Like they put
Hmm.
their own notions from what they know about life on you without even
Yes,
trying to understand. That's the tough part.
that
Without
is
even
so.
trying to understand. So do you recommend any therapists, or do you recommend any organizations that have helped you, or you've used to help other people?
Well, for me personally, I would say, well, I'll just say if someone's looking for a therapist, I mean, you nowadays you can Google based upon what you're looking
Hmm.
for. Whether it's African American, you want male or female, you got insurance, you can,
Yeah.
there's a phone number that you can call for, through your insurance to get referrals so you can
Yeah.
get a search based upon what it is you're going through, whether it's trauma, whether it's anxiety, depression, whatever it is. I would recommend starting there. But for me, I mean, the same thing, I had to look for someone, to help me. But I also had someone that was very close, that was a psychologist, that really helped me walk through this, So I feel like if you're looking for someone, whether it's based on your faith, there are all type of therapists, psychologists that can help you and can walk through things with you. But for me, I've had friends, family members that have asked, and I've helped them myself. Look, I mean, it's really easy nowadays to get their therapy. Telehealth, I mean, on the phone. You don't even have to go into an office. You can
Right.
talk on the phone to a therapist. And trust me, I've done that many times. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's easy. It's really easy. There's no way you can say that, you can't get the help. If you want it, it's available to you. And there's so many organizations that offer services, support groups. I mean, there's so much available now for mental health resources are getting better, for certain things, I should say.
No, you're right. There's so many, like there's so
Mhm.
I think the last 2 to 3 years have been the most amount of therapy, what do they call, therapy commercials I've ever seen, from BetterHelp to, like you said, the telehealth, to
Yeah.
several services out there.
Mhm.
But if you missed it before, if you weren't on earlier, you said something about being prepared to get help too.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes people aren't necessarily prepared or ready to get that help. So if you need to start doing, like, if therapy is a big step for you, and this is just my take on it, if therapy
Mhm.
is a big step for you, start doing simple things. Like I read this book called Stillness is the Key. And
Mm.
the guy talks about, I needed it because I'm never still. So I I'm always moving somewhere. So I got the book just based off the title. And he just talks about like meditation practices, just sitting there, closing your eyes, whatever whatever comes to your mind in that amount of time, that's what you should step towards. Like if you're looking for signs, if you're looking for direction, obviously pray, prayer and things of that nature, and also ask God for guidance. But sometimes just sit still and don't just try to make moves yourself, and then lead into therapy, lead into talking to other people, but be prepared before you do that. And be prepared for something else you said: rejection. Be prepared for people not agreeing or understanding what you come to the table with.
That's
Because
true.
if you're not prepared, you can bring something to the table, and you can be instantly hurt by it if you're not prepared. Like whatever they say, you're not ready for their response. So it just instantly hurts you, and it decreases like your morale to try to get better. So
Mm.
yeah, I just hope people understand that. And yeah, I'm glad that Girls Breaking Chains is giving young women a chance to touch base with people like you who are prepared.
Oh, yes.
Um, my next question, I want to change it up a little bit. Um, what was one memory you have of your mother describing how great your father was?
How great he was.
Yeah, something positive about it. Something positive about him. Something just.
Listen, I gotta be honest with you. Oh my goodness. But I will say this. When all of this, everything happened, she was reassuring to me
Yeah.
that, that he loved me, and it's not my fault. And because she witnessed me breaking down every time I got a letter from my dad.
Mhm.
So yeah, she that I know she reminded me that, your dad loves you, it's gonna be okay, and he loves you. I can remember her saying that now, definitely, and just
Wow.
comforting me. Yeah, reassuring me that.
Okay. No, I'll take it. I'll take that. And I want to end with this question. So we've talked about therapy. We've talked about having a support system around you. Let's just be honest. Taking on such a big task,
Mhm.
even though it happened to you, taking on this big task of supporting young women through their parents being incarcerated and understanding, their traumas. How are you decompressing every day, dealing with some of these emotions? How are you getting, certain things off your mind and off your chest when you go home after taking on such a big responsibility?
Well, I believe I don't know if I mentioned to you, we haven't yet, started the actual support group yet, as
Mhm.
far as even the clients. We're still waiting for those referrals. But I mean, just the day to day of running, a nonprofit, getting everything together and still being a wife, a mom, having a 2-year-old as well, and then a 10-year-old. Really, it's something I'm still working on. Balance. It's not something, some days are better than others, but definitely two, having people around you like, okay, remember, you're not alone. Make sure you're still delegating and you're doing what you need to do, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because you're not any good to anyone if you're not taking care of yourself. But I really am still learning how to balance,
Mhm.
so that's something I'm still working on, day to day. It's definitely a balance, and goal setting, writing down goals. Okay, for the beginning of the week, what is it that I want to accomplish?
Mhm.
And I'm one of those people, I'm really hard on myself. So if I don't get something done, I'm just like, oh my goodness. But just kind of trying to take a step back and be like, okay, I got one thing done. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I can pick up this on next week, or
Yes.
so
I
that's
definitely, I definitely share in that idea. I definitely share in that idea. You make this Sunday night, you make this to-do list of 7 things you want to get done tomorrow. And you only get one thing done. It's the most frustrating thing. I had to. That's one of the reasons I got therapy, because you'll be so stressed and upset, but it's like you did get something done. You did scratch it off your list. So um,
yeah.
if
Mhm.
not only you but to myself and anybody listening, man, just give yourself some credit somewhere, because sometimes nobody else will give it to you. Nobody else will give it to you. Sometimes you have to give it to yourself. So that way, you feel better, and it allows you to do the next task. You can't do the next task if you're sad and down and unmotivated. So
There you go.
definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
Well, Tanisha, I really appreciate you taking out this time tonight to come on this third episode of Food for the Homeless. I started this podcast to really show people the ins and outs of careers, what people are doing in the communities, how they're starting their businesses, and the reason behind their businesses and their nonprofits. And you're actually the first nonprofit I've ever brought on. And I
Wow.
and I really think that that's quite amazing for you to not be doing this for any type of what is it, clout, as they say, or money or
Yeah.
leverage. You're
Yeah.
you're, you're strictly doing this out of passion and out of wanting to see other for betterment for other people. And that's honestly the greatest gift you could give. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, the community you're reaching out to for these young women, the young women you do come in contact with in the future, your team, your family, all of them will support you, and they're definitely going to appreciate the work that you put in.
Oh, that's my prayer, that we can definitely, be the light, be a beacon of hope for every young girl. To remind them that they're fearfully and wonderfully made, and they're not their circumstances, and God has a purpose and a plan for their life, and it's even greater than they can imagine. They just need a hand, someone to come alongside them, and that's what we're here for. We just want to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and
Uh,
so that's our goal. And we truly believe that God is going to emancipate his greatness through us to be able to reach those specifically dealing with parental incarceration.
and I believe that as well. I believe that as well. What I'll do when we leave here, I'll make sure to post on Apple Podcasts and on Instagram and share with my followers a link to your website, a link to your Instagram, tag you in it so people can just see the great work you guys are doing. And yeah, no, we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. And I see a lot of folks are on. I wish y'all had on your camera so I could see your face.
Sure. I wanted to open the floor up to any questions anybody might have about the organization, about the podcast. Does anyone have any questions or any input on the interview, on Tynecia's nonprofit, or either on the podcast?
And I see your face.
All right. It's a lot of people. This is great.
Yeah. Or any comments?
Okay, well, there's my wife. That's a great face.
Hey, Erica.
All right, she left.
Hey, Vera.
Hey, Miss Vera, how are you?
Thank you for joining. Any questions or comments?
You can't see my face, but I'm one of Daniel's old classmates, Desiree. I really enjoyed this podcast. He sent me a link this morning, and I was like, everything that you said, I can resonate with because I'm a new mom of a baby girl, and you do get so overwhelmed with everything, and sometimes you just like, oh my God, how am I gonna do it all? How am I going to get it all accomplished? And I don't know, it was nice joining this podcast. I felt like it wasn't by coincidence, because sometimes you get so busy with life and you just like, sometimes you just got to sit down, just sit down, listen, and remind you that you're not the only one that's going through some things, and that everything's going to be okay. And to give yourself credit, me and my friend literally literally just had a conversation about that earlier today. And she was like, Desiree, sometimes you're all over the place, but when you're getting something accomplished, don't be afraid to give yourself that credit, that recognition that you need, because it's definitely appreciated.
Yes, totally agree with you, Desiree.
Yeah, I definitely am going to put give yourself credit in part of the commentary, because I think women, women in general, mothers, anybody dealing with issues of parental incarceration, you have to give yourself credit, because a lot of times, like I said, nobody else will, and you guys deserve that. Thank you, Desiree, for speaking.
Yeah, thank you, Desiree.
No problem, no problem.
I think somebody just joined that was about to speak. Hey, how are you?
Hey,
Hey.
Yeah, you have a question?
no.
You don't? Okay, thank you for joining. Looks like somebody's working and they joined. Thanks so much, Risha.
Hey.
Any other questions or commentary?
Tell us how we can find her.
Okay.
There's something in the chat. It says, I am glad that God has brought Ty this far and allowing her to overcome her shyness, to be able to share with the world her pain, to be able to help others heal while in the midst of healing herself. Oh, that's so sweet. And so this is someone that definitely know my story. This is Marlena. Hey, Marlena, thank you for that comment.
Wow. Well, it really shows your growth. If nobody else has any questions or commentary, Tynecia, can you give us a quick recap of how to find you on Instagram, YouTube, like how everybody can find your organization?
Sure, guys. I'm not on YouTube, but we do have our own website. We're on Instagram, and it's Girls Breaking Chains, all one word. And also our website, girlsbreakingchains.org. You can stay up to date there, get up to date information there, and reach out to me as well at girlsbreakingchains@gmail.com. So thank y'all so much for joining. I really appreciate it. God bless each and every one of you for taking the time to sit in on the podcast.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, so much.